The grade cricketer is a Twitter stream. It's about playing cricket at the grade level.
Boys!
Get a few today, did you?
To be honest with you, I hate grade cricket.
I went into to play for a team called the name escaped me.
Obviously, sharing's always a big issue for young kids coming into a senior cricket team.
I think it was like a witness league.
A bit of advice to the player. That's all I want.
I refer to the great cricketer here and I'll say, this will do a little bit early.
Hello and welcome to the Grey Cricketer Podcast. On today's show, Australia claimed the ODI series and we get a first enormous look at the biggest of big boys, Cameron Green, before Pandya changes his bat and India take the T20 series in Canberra and Sydney. We're talking concussion laws, blow-ups, Captain Wade, Australia A, Dawid Malan, England's COVID tour of South Africa, Kane Williamson's 251 on a fake news green deck, and the BBL kicking off on Thursday. The Honourable Kevin Rudd, 26th Prime Minister of Australia, is of course on the show to discuss PMs XI's, handball kings, sledging, and his petition for a royal commission. Hashtag AskTDC involves a wonderful story about seeing your heroes on the circuit. This episode is brought to you by Budgy Smuggler. We can get all your Christmas gifts, your smugglers, your accessories using the code CHAMP at checkout at budgysmuggler.com. Of course, all of our interviews this season are sponsored by Ponting Wines. You can get 10% off a price of a case of Ponting Wines using the code GETAFEW at checkout. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Grey Cricketer for more exclusive content every single week. My name is Ian Higgins, and I'm joined by Sam Perry Pez. Well, we're into the summer now, mate. We're into it. We're into it.
Yeah, an absolute overload of cricket now. Don't know what to do.
Well,
Talk about it, I guess.
I guess we should just have a chat about it.
Yeah.
Just tell some stories.
Yeah.
Just give the people what they want.
Yeah.
And what the people want is Cameron Green.
And that is all they want. And how much of him is there? Still a question.
Still some. Yeah, it's
Still
spurious.
some conjecture. I can reveal one thing, he goes, in relation to this broader theme about height. You posed a very important question last week, and for those who have just joining the show, obviously to hear the interview with Kevin Rudd, the Honourable Kevin Rudd AC, 26th Prime Minister of Australia, speaking like one of those politics guys at the end of the ads.
Yeah, that's how we got him.
You mentioned last week in the broader theme about height and size and Cameron Green that perhaps height is the only thing in life where people round down. You know, we always round up in cricket.
Yeah.
You know, you hit 16, 20 odd, etc. We've gone through this before. We've mined it.
Yeah.
Depressingly so.
Yeah.
I got a note from
How big is
acclaimed DJ, Joyride.
Right.
Okay. No Joyride in a personal capacity. And he just wrote privately to me, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he's a big boy, very tall
He is,
guy, and in
yeah.
great shape, by the way, if you're listening, Joyride. Fantastic shape. Great rig. He wrote to me and he said, I'm 203 centimetres, but say 2 metres when people ask. Feels better out of the mouth. Hope you're well, brother.
Now, if you're giving your height in metres, just a nice ease. I'm 2 metres.
2 metres.
I'm 2 metres big.
It does the job, doesn't it?
It really does.
You know what I mean? You don't have to put
point,
any GST on it.
Well, at that point, it doesn't matter how big. I mean, if you start saying I'm 2 metres.
2 metres. How tall are you? 2 metres.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah. I know I'll be giving and taking
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Anyway,
So Green's in that sphere.
we saw Green, though. He's not grainy anymore. We see what he looks like. I think you mentioned on Twitter, he looks like he's just finished rowing training, or his dad's picked him up from Chambers. I just added that in. But he's taller than Hazelwood, who's 1.96 centimetres.
Okay.
They say Green's 1.98. Starting to get close to 1.98. He can round that up to 2, can't he? Are you able to round up if you're not 2, though? How does Joyride feel about that at 203 centimetres? Were you not 2?
You're not 2. You're not 2.
You know, how'd you go on the week? I hit 98. It's not 100.
That'd be the same as I play first grade.
Yeah.
You were in the trial for first grade.
Yeah.
You sub-fielded.
You played possibles v probables, and a couple of first graders were in that side.
Yes.
You were accidentally selected, even though you're in 4th grade, because someone else called Sam.
Mickey Edwards doesn't say I played for Australia when he sub-fielded the SCG all those years ago.
He may well do.
He may well do,
And he's
actually.
actually entitled to do that.
He's entitled to be
But
fair.
that's not
So
the same
a
as
good
being
example.
1.9.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, back to that. Now
Yeah.
this comes on in the structure pairs where we, during the winter months down under, we were saying, you know, Zach Crawley, wonderful 270 against Pakistan.
Odd. Yeah.
Odd. But it's all a bit tall. And we thought, you coined the phrase, tall runs are weird runs. and that applies to Cameron Green, right? But there is an offset of thickness. And by God, there's some thickness on this chap. We haven't seen shoulders like these since Hayden.
And that was the question we had, because he's only 19, isn't he, Green? I think he
might be 20.
Right.
Right.
Does he round it up?
Because you can't round up. If you're a 20-year-old and someone's 19, I'm 20. No, you're not. You're 19.
By the time you're 19, you're holding on to that number, I think.
Fucking oath you are.
Unless you're in the US and you are. Yeah.
All the birthdays stop counting after about 21.
Yeah. Okay. Separate issue. That's
Yeah.
a different podcast.
I've got some other stuff going on.
Yeah. Anyway, what are we talking about? Yeah, tall runs, real weird runs, but it's offset by thickness. Well. Anyway, we got to see him. He goes,
we saw
and he made 20 odd on
He
debut.
did, he
Yeah,
did.
21.
But the clubbing of the in that ODI.
And there was a sort of a sledging incident. There's a verbal barb thing that I think you're about to introduce.
Well,
but-
perhaps, yeah. Well, I mean, so he walks out to the crease.
Yeah.
KL Rahul, wicket keeping.
Yeah.
Apparently one of the nicest guys going around.
Well.
Cameron Green's walking to the wicket.
Got a view on this.
He's walking to the wicket. KL Rahul says, "Are you nervous?" Cameron Green replies, "Yeah, I am a bit. Rightfully so. Big occasion. First international match. Australia under lights. One of the first matches of the summer. The third, in fact. I counted them. And he's expecting probably something back from KL Rahul, who just replies, "Go well, youngster." All of a sudden, Cameron Green's thinking, I'll remember that for the rest of my life. You're fucking right, you will. Yeah. That's a mindfuck of all sorts. In the meantime, Virat Kohli sledging Aaron Finch at the non-strikers end, Finch giving it back to him. Cameron Green just caught in the crosshairs here. Yeah. What? It's confusing.
Now listen, Green was so moved by this incident of KL Rahul saying something nice to him at international level that he was moved to speak about it in the presser afterwards.
Yes.
You know, what happens on field stays on the field, etc. But Green's like, I need to sort of relay this publicly. Now,
is this normal?
And many would take it on face value and say, well, isn't that nice? Isn't cricket starting to return to the realm of the gentleman's sport? You know? Gentlemanly conduct. Now, I have a different view on this. I think this is a genius play from KL Rahul, and I'm going to tell you why. I think this is fourth dimension sledging.
Okay.
No,
4D chess.
So, 4D chess. KL Rahul says, how you feeling, youngster? All right? And immediately, Green's internal radar starts flashing.
This ain't right.
He's rattled.
Yeah.
This is a 9/11 level of response. Police, firefighters, internally going off in his head. What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
He's talked about in the press conference, obviously. It's the main memory he's going to have from the match.
Well, and the reason, if I can interject, is because he would have grown up playing club cricket in Australia.
I was gonna say.
You walk to the wicket. I mean, Cameron Green would have been playing first grade when he was 8. For height reasons, mostly, I'm sure. But he would have been absolutely peppered with sledging from his entire career. Gets to the highest realm of international cricket, and everyone's nice to him all of a sudden. What's this?
Think about the environments he's grown up in, Cameron Green.
I often do.
And he's true. Yeah, and so do I.
Yeah, at the regatta.
Yes. What environments were around his cricket? Is it a rowing thing? It's a blonde hair. I don't know.
One time he had to wear old boat shoes.
So much to fill in. Yeah. What about the environments he's traversed to get to international level? All the way, they call it pathways now, but more than that. Backyard, grade cricket, lower grades if he played them at all. Grade training, 17s, 19s, state cricket, Aussie 19s if he even played that. He's probably eligible for that this year. State training, etc. The entire social contract of Australian cricketers is based around jousting.
Yes, jousting.
It's based around antagonising with your jousting. So KL Rahul fucking misdirects him, throws him. How you feeling today, youngster?
Yeah.
Go well today, youngster.
Yeah.
So 9/11 firefighters.
What the fuck are you playing at,
What's going
KL?
on here? Fucking like sirens in his head.
Yeah.
And so Green responds with a little bit of misdirection of his own. Takes him on face value, and I kind of sheepish brings this back to me, but like Doug Bollinger, I once hit a single off him and it went for 5 for 4 overthrows, and he says, no, you know the next one's coming, don't you? And there was extra bits in there as well. And I said, no, I don't. You take it on face value. Or trying to think of an American, I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast.
Yeah.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
Yeah.
In Green, in this case, he's like, are you nervous? And Green says, yeah, I am. A little bit. Like he actually concedes it.
Yeah. Now it's just two blokes having a chat.
KL Rahul triples down on this.
Yeah.
And he says, he's jousting, but without the antagonism. He goes, go well, youngster. Green's like, what the fuck's going on here? The whole thing is flipped upside down.
Yeah.
It's a knockout punch. Like they say, kill them with kindness.
They do.
He's flawed.
Yes.
He's on the deck. And it was a tentative start from Green, poking and prodding, and he couldn't nurdle it around.
Bloke behind him.
He started clubbing him later. That's all right. That's just the athlete coming into play.
And that's him to clubbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different.
He clubbed it.
Clubbing them.
Anyway, he goes on to, he's obviously made 100. He goes in the Australia A game.
Yes, in the bat-off that was the Australia A game on a green spicy deck of Drummoyne.
And again, this innings, from all reports, I watched a little bit of it yesterday, beautifully described. I love listening to Kerry O'Keefe on KO. Like when he's allowed to analyse and stuff, and when he does, it's great. And he was sort of explaining that like this was a very patient innings from Green. Everyone else fell around him. He was patient, it was precise, he summed up the conditions when all else around him failed. All the other top order bats failed around him. These were not Adelaide Park 25 runs.
They weren't.
These were tough runs. It was the antithesis of highly levered bombs that you'd expect from a clubber at 200 centimetres, give or take.
And played on a Sydney Test ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Drummoyne Oval.
Yes.
And still, the article screamed this morning, geez, big, isn't he?
He'll never escape it.
And I'm just thinking, he goes, at what point do we start talking about sizeism with Cameron Green? Like Cameron Green wakes up this morning, he's toughed out 100 to again to say to the selectors, these aren't Peterson runs, these aren't I'm a big boy runs, hitting them over the top on a third grade ground when everyone else fails. This is literally like this is precision personified. This is shot selection, all the things you don't expect from 200 centimetres. All right, he's now going to be referred to as 200 centimetres. And still in the morning, it's like, mate, how big is he? Does he start to think like, boys, can we stop talking about my size?
I'm
sure.
a bat. I'm sure.
I'm a bat who bowls 140s through the chest.
Well, there's that as well. Now, if you're talking about 4D chest though, Pez, because he was dropped shockingly so. He was dropped shockingly so on 24 in that third, fourth slip.
I know they keep saying as well when he made his 100s, like, and he's had a bit of luck today. It's like, okay, fuck, everyone has a bit of luck when they score 100.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking like, are India playing games to getting back into the test team? They're getting in contention now.
Yeah.
Like they're showing.
Well,
I reckon the third, fourth slip drop catch. Now all slips catches are hard, except for those ones.
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Let thicker edge,
slower.
You see it better.
There's more of a parabolic arc to it, as opposed to the first slip. Maybe the keeper's coming across. Second slip can come fast as well. Maybe even cut shots can go there sometimes. Third slip, back foot. Nah, that's pretty gentle. Shelled on 24. Getting in the test team all of a sudden.
India is playing 4D chess this whole time.
Playing something.
They've got the Wanger specialists. We'll talk about that another time. Who's just got out of quarantine, started winning, haven't they? Pandya's fucking people's minds with his bat, bringing his bat on 2 overs to go, etc. We might get to that. They're shelling chances deliberately, and how seriously can you take Green's 100 when Ravi Ashwin's bowling in a hat? It's like, everything was great about it. Everyone nicked off, fast wicket, doing a bit, great precise shot selection. Ashwin's bowling in a hat though, brother.
We're getting some areas here. People saying that's so great cricket. That's not fucking great cricket, because great cricketers, all they want to be is test cricketers. They're replicating what test players do. They're buying all the same kit. They're buying all the same kit because they want to look like, they want to look sponsored.
They say they don't buy, but
pristine white selection. Everything looking good. Speed deals in the back of the cap if you're feeling at point. Put them in the
They're
front.
priming. They say you should wear, dress for the job you want.
Yeah.
So fourth graders dress like it's a World Cup final in whites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Ravi Ashwin bowling in a hat. I've never seen anyone bowling a hat in grade cricket.
Yeah, he's training.
Yeah.
He's at training.
He's at training.
In a first class fixture.
If he bowled in
literally
jeans,
the opposite of grade cricket. If he bowled in jeans,
I've seen that before.
I've seen that before as well.
I've seen that before at
third
training.
net.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Blake just comes down.
Yeah.
And they're always the best spinner
But
somehow.
that's moving into park territory.
That's
Let's not
park
mix
stuff.
up grade and park.
I mean, the third net's the shit net, and that does lean a little bit into some
Pre-season.
It's a little bit how you going.
Yeah.
It's a little bit how you going.
Yeah. But those people who turn up to grade trials in hats, in the third net, in jeans, they don't make the squad on aesthetic and sartorial decisions alone, and they get shoveled off to park cricket. So again, don't tell us it's grade cricket.
It's like turning up for an audition for a Western wearing a suit. That you're just not going to get picked. If you turn up to a grade training and you're wearing like an England ODI shirt, you might as well get the fuck out of here, mate. You're gonna give me throwdowns for 45 minutes and fuck off.
Yeah. So the question is, what weight do we put behind Cameron? What are we talking about? What weight do we put down?
Jeez, Green battle. I thought.
Fucking battle. He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's big, isn't he?
Well, so one final thing on this, just with the relationship to grade cricket. Sarah Berman is a scorer at North Sydney and made her first class debut as a scorer recently. Congratulations to Sarah for that. And Sarah scored this match, or is scoring this match, and she took a picture of the scorecard. Yeah. And we forget about the manual scorebook when it comes to first class and test cricket, but the manual scorebook was always there, and it always tells more of a story and has more narratives than just the digitised scoreboard or whatever you see on TV, he goes. Now, Sarah took a photo of it. It's a great photo of the day's play. And because it's from above, it's actually the scene we've all seen when we're looking over the scorer's shoulder, pretending, after we get out, pretending to work out how many overs this bloke's got left or how many we're on, when you're actually just calculating or tabulating how many you've got.
Yeah.
And the thing you note about it is because everyone else failed, you know, Pekowski failed, Burns failed, Harris failed, Head failed-ish, you know, Green, massive runs, and then Mattinson, and whatever.
Paying at 40.
Underneath. What you see is fail, massive score, ones and fours, everything there, and then everything underneath. And it's just kind of like, you sort of draw a picture of it, and you're like, it kind of, the runs have more weight because just the length of the numbers is longer on the scorecard.
So even his innings is big.
His innings is big. Everything about Green is big, and you know. Anyway,
was the photo taken was Cameron Green's shadow just behind her, just leaning over?
Yeah.
How many overs has this bloke got left?
Yeah.
Yeah, whilst I...
How many Ashram bowl? Yeah. What was my partnership with Payne? He's just working that out. No, he's not. He's just counting.
Well, he also bowled Cameron Green. This is fucking the Cameron Green show now. He also bowled Cameron Green, and Travis Head was quoted as saying, I'm impressed by... I've never seen him bowl before. Someone sent in to us in our DMs. He'd actually got Travis Head out 2 years before for 87. Fucking rolled him.
Exactly.
Travis Head never seen him.
Head's captain. I've never seen him play. I don't remember playing you, brother.
Does what he wants.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's
that. That's that.
That's
the show.
Now, the Australia-India T20 series, Pez. I got to say, a couple of great games of cricket. I've really enjoyed the cricket.
Can you believe it?
Like this, the Sydney one. I mean, belting game of cricket.
Yeah. Could it be that we're about to have a good summer of cricket between two teams playing cricket at a high level, and we might enjoy the games? Wouldn't have thought so. It's going to be all the narratives and gossip around it, but still, the height of Cameron Green.
Just spoken for 20 minutes on Cameron Green. I mean, who starts these conversations? I don't really know. I mean, Pandya's just amazing. He's fucking rock star. He's got tattoos on his neck. I'm fucking into it. He's changing his bat. There's some mythology behind the bat.
Yeah,
why doesn't he just come out with the bat?
In our heads.
He's more head games.
Yeah, I like it from India.
You know, in the second T20, when Daniel Sam's playing his first international game, he's playing his first game
to him.
Game of cricket. Kohli first wicket, not
bad.
And he has to bowl the last over to Hardik Pandya.
Yeah.
And he hit him for 2 sixes in the final over, the second of which was one of the cleanest sixes I've ever seen. And it wasn't because of the shot necessarily, the connection to it. It was the stillness of the base. It was the head that was down. These guys are hitting fucking so many sixes in training, in matches. They're playing cricket every fucking 45 minutes.
It's driving range stuff, isn't it?
It's driving range stuff, mate. Yeah. Like, so to describe it, Sam's bowls, perhaps, you know, T-ball-esque, you know, where would you exactly want it if I could criticise Daniel? And I will. He bowled
Having bowled a few death overs yourself.
Yes, of course, at a high level. Under lights at the SCG.
Yeah. I just at training sometimes when they say 6 to go and you've got to plan it out and set your field and stuff.
I'm usually doing some fielding training, but he goes, come in.
Yeah. I'll just have a long on and...
So I set a field,
He's 45, actually. He actually ends up covering 60 metres either
side.
Now,
I always have 3 slips, but I've got 4 men out in the hook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a very confusing field. Anyway, so he bowls his ball and it's like just perfect ball, and just Pandya just fucking gets underneath it, but he keeps his head down the entire time. So he's hit it for 6 and he's still looking at where the ball's pitched. And it's like, that is fucking alpha.
Mate, Shreyas Iyer did the same thing a few overs before off Zampa. And the thing you noted from it was just how his head stayed down almost for the entirety of the arc of the ball. And it was like, it was like an Brad Menard of cricket shot. It's like, keep your head down. I mean, obviously Bradman never hit his 6, and that's one of the big blots on his copybook. But just would have been good if he could go a bit aerial. Just had access a few different areas.
Bradman needs to access a few more areas.
So that's why he wouldn't have been good at T20. But it was good from India. It was good cricket. Australia playing their second team-ish, but I mean, kind of lost amid all of the the politics and the gossip and the hoo-ha is that it was a really good game of cricket. It went deep. India, and just shows T20 cricket can just hang on a couple of moments here and there, can't it?
In that second T20, Wade was captain of the side. It was remarkably under strength, you'd have to say. Starker's left to the bubble for a family illness. Finch was injured. Warner's injured. Obviously, they've rested Cummins, etc., etc. And so Smith played.
Yep.
And they've given the captaincy to Wade in that game, who is the vice captain. But I reckon that's a bit of a signifier. That I think that would have been if Smith was going to captain Australia again, and again, obviously just opinion. What the fuck do I know? But like, if Smith was going to captain Australia again, that would have been a perfect game to just give him one. You know, it's behind the paywall on Fox. It is a fairly meaningless T20 series. It's a under-strengthened side. Just give him that game, just a little test of waters again, just to, you know, break the ice, so to speak, in terms of like he's going to give it, they're going to give it back to him in a couple of months' time or whatever, or, you know, in a year's time after Payne retires.
Softening us up.
Softening us up, exactly right, thank you. But they didn't, they gave it to Wade.
Yeah, they went for the interim appointment. So, like, they asked Cricket Australia and Langer about this, and there was an intimation that to have appointed Smith for that game at short notice was difficult because the appointment of a new captain requires a certain process in Australian cricket. Like, you've got to go to the board or something.
You've got to go to the Queen.
You've got to go to the Queen. You've got to write. You actually need a referendum. Majority of votes in a majority of states, and we'll ask Mr. Rudd about that later.
Yes.
And so I think there was look, I'm paraphrasing, but there was an intimation that, like, because of the political element of reappointing Smith, they didn't have enough time to go to the board and get it all done. So I think that permits Langer to sort of hold his cards closer to his chest around what he thinks, around what should happen next, etc. It definitely gave an opportunity for a few people to come out and show their cards on what they think should happen next. Like, I know Mark Taylor, former Test captain and former board member, was very strong in saying he thinks Smith should be able to get it back. And yeah, like, technically he's eligible. He was eligible to do it. He's eligible to lead, and they opted not. And for him not to leave.
And he's captain his IPL team.
So he was a candidate. So there was an interesting story from Peter Lawler about this on his podcast with Gideon. And he was saying, he was talking about how Smith was interviewed the other day. Smith, who gave Cameron Green, again, how tall is he? His cap for the ODI, was interviewed later, and they asked Smith, this is Lawler who said this, but they asked Smith, what do you think of Cam Green? And Smith sort of ummed and ahed and said, I haven't had a great chance to get to know him because I've been batting, I've been batting and doing my thing. And it's kind of like getting to know him is the sort of thing that you would kind of charge a captain with, you know what I mean? And Smith is in his batting bubble, which is his job at the moment, and there's a lot of people who are thinking, like, just prefer him in his batting bubble, he shouldn't have to do those things. If it doesn't kind of come naturally to him, then that's he should just be left that way. Like, I think it's tragic and devastating for Smith that he's kind of lost the captaincy and the way he was dealt with. But, like, I do think fundamentally they've developed a better leadership apparatus beyond him.
Well, I agree, mate. And I think, I can't remember if we've spoken about here or just privately, but, for Smith to not get it back seems to me to be the right thing to do, only because I think that there's a better leadership apparatus in place already, and I think someone else could probably do the better job.
As
but
demonstrated by what they've done since.
That doesn't take away from the fact that if someone is given it, if it's Head or Cummins or whoever it is, that would feel like he's being punished again.
100%.
And I maintain all the way through that, in my opinion, it was a fucking disgrace what happened to Steve Smith and the way that he was treated from basically every corner of the apparatus.
It was
itself.
taken from him for many, many reasons beyond his own leadership, for decades of stuff that went on, and it's absolutely agonising for him. However, you can't
separately,
you can't
just have a stick,
reappoint him captain. Just because you are atoning for something went wrong.
That's right.
Like Cricket Australia, Australian cricket has moved forward, and I think that it's kind of demonstrated that that new way of leading and their new MO is working for them. And so the best interest of Australian cricket is to probably have someone new and encourage Steve Smith to have a stick, mate.
Don't worry about meeting the big boy. Just have a stick. Just get your 8 million throwdowns. Pez, the BBL starts on Thursday. The Hurricanes are against the Sixers. All the teams are in the bubble at the moment, and we know for a fact that they're all trying to figure out what the fuck to do with these rules.
Yeah. And there was a good story from Andrew Wu in the Tonk about there being like a big players meeting. I was in Sydney Morning Herald, but like a big players meeting about how to work through fucking hub life and stuff like that. And someone was saying, look, this is a shit show because, like, you're allowed to sit next to your family at a restaurant, but not with them. And like people are allowed to restock the fridge, but you can't touch the mini bar. There's a few issues around the mini bar, apparently.
Yeah.
Rightly so.
Yeah, rightly so.
If you're just cooped up in a hotel the whole time,
First
want
thing I'm
access to
looking
that bad boy.
Yeah. Want access to that bad boy. It's about accessing different areas.
But yeah, apparently the the one that they're all freaking out about is the power play, or what's that called, the power surge or some shit. But
So there's the bash boost, the power surge, and the X Factor. The X Factor is obviously the replacement of the subs. I'm not sure.
it has to be power surge.
Power surge.
Is it power surge?
Power surge.
Power surge is when the lights go off, isn't it? Anyway,
The bash boost is a drink from Boost Juice.
I'm always mixing those two up.
Yeah.
It's an easy mistake to make. Talking off air to like Dan Christian,
Yeah.
who's worried he's going to be an X Factor sub because he's an all-rounder. But anyway, and he was saying like he was worried about that. Then they played some trial matches and he hit a 33-ball 100. So I think he's going to be okay. But they're just saying like how difficult this power play is going to be. There's extra 2 overs. And so he said it's just going to be a barrage of sixes and then barrage of bombs. And then we spoke to Steve O'Keefe yesterday. He won't mind us saying off-air things either, some of them. And he told us how like...
Yeah.
Greg Shippard, the Sixers coach, just like absolutely flogged them yesterday, making them play in the second power play structure. And he was just saying it was just bombs galore.
Yeah.
It just changes the entire game. And he was like, he made them do it for like 30 overs and balls were just bombs just raining everywhere. And he's like, man, I only went for 26 off my 2.
Yeah.
So, micro contests. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's only two players outside the circle or
yeah. I mean, you can be going really well, and then it's just like we're going to do another 2 here. Completely changes the game.
I got to say that for all the umming and ahhing and the hyperbole around these rules, it's just going to be on, and it's going to be like, oh, now they're doing the power surge or whatever, and it's going to be like, oh yeah, this is good. That's fine.
Yeah,
your life will continue. It's all good.
Yeah, what I was thinking yesterday is just off the top of my head, but like when Australia playing India that last T20, like I just with father duties, and I call myself a father just for extra gravitas. But
nice.
I tuned in for the last 5 overs of the game. I had it on, but then I sat down. Australia India, I've gone back to the SCG.
Yeah.
And it sort of reminded me of NBA. You know how you tune in for the last sort of quarter or last 5 minutes of NBA?
Yeah. It goes for
and
an
now
hour.
everyone's just taking it deep, and it just seemed to be a game taken really deep. Australia were always ahead, but India just sort of had them. Anyway, I just wonder if there's going to be a bit of that in the BBL as well.
Yeah.
If a team's going to look really far ahead, but then the power surge will bring them back. I mean, very interesting stuff.
Well, the power surge might be the one where you can get a bonus point up to 10 overs. That might be that. I don't know. We'll figure it out on Thursday when it's on television. Hurricanes versus Sixers first game Thursday night. South Africa
Channel
versus
7.
England. Pez. Now, the final T20, which happened about a month and a half ago, Dawid Malan scored 99 not out to win the game, which goes before, we were saying before, he's one of the best T20 players in the world at the moment. He's actually going to come into the bubble he's playing for the Hurricanes. England won that series 3-0. Now, the first ODI was supposed to happen on Sunday, and it's all kicked off there, mate, because on Friday, South Africa player tested positive for COVID. Then on Sunday, 2 hotel staff, where they're all being bubbled, tested positive, and then 2 of the England parties were all tested positive on Sunday. So they pushed the match back a couple of hours. Then it was suspended completely. There's heaps of layers to this. So first of all, Australia is scheduled to tour there next year, and it also reminds me that how good things are in Australia, and we kind of forget, don't we? Like things like there's fucking crowds of the SCG. Actually, as of yesterday, I think most of the restrictions have gone. So there's dancing in clubs again, full house of the SCG if they want it from now on. Yeah. Even Melbourne, where it's been horrendous, in Australian terms anyway, it's still going to be like 30,000 people for the Boxing Day test.
Right.
It's so good here, and then you kind of forget that it's never been worse. COVID's never been worse everywhere else except for here.
Person's dying every 30 seconds in the US of COVID.
Yeah.
It's getting bad. I know there's a vaccine out now, thanks to the other countries for having a crack at that first.
Use the code.
That's why we're pleased to bring on Pfizer.
Champ or be champed, and we'll be fast tracked for the. We brought Pfizer on board. Get a few.
Use the code get a few. I'd imagine Australia's tour to South Africa would be a bit how you're going in the circumstances, unless they get that vaccine going, I reckon. And I reckon there'd be a couple of players in Australia who wouldn't be too displeased.
They would be devastated.
Given that there's about 14 other Australian matches on at that time as well, so they're already going to have to choose.
That's right.
I was thinking about Warner with his injury, and having a bit of and you're right, Australia's going very well, and we should be very grateful for how things are in Australia at the moment. But I think how devastated would Warner be at the moment to have a bit of an enforced break from cricket, given he was literally in and out of bubbles till June.
Yeah.
You know, a guy loves hanging out with his family, like we all do, really, having a bit of time off. I know, of course, he's trying to get back, but like, it still all just feels like it still feels a little bit strange and distanced and dystopian that this cricket's even happening. You know, and we're lucky just to have it on because it's a little bit of a pastime. But I'm kind of happy for Warner, and I hope the players get a chance to have a few breaks here and there because it would be so strange. Like we walked past Kane Richardson the other day, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm allowed to like go to this coffee shop. He's quarantining, like coffee shop, like 5 meters from his house or whatever, but then back in, and it'd be very strange for them, given that like there's just 0 cases around Melbourne, all that sort of gear.
It's funny, isn't it? Because now that like most of Australia is pretty COVID normal.
Yeah.
There's lots of normal life here. And so I think in a global sense, Australia needs the sport less than what perhaps the rest. So I'm thinking like, for instance, the Big Bash starting. I reckon there's people in the UK who are, I know they had, in the Premier League, they've got 2,000 fans back in some cities in the tier. They've got tiered systems going on over there. But they might need the Big Bash more because it's on and it's sport and it's an escape and it's more reality. They'll see crowds in Australia. It's like things will be back soon. Whereas in Australia, we're fucking out at bars and we're standing up in pubs now, and it's actually much more normal here. So it's almost for the rest of the world, because I'm thinking as well, if I lead this into the New Zealand West Indies series, New Zealand, the West Indies players, they couldn't train for 2 weeks because of a whole bunch of them broke the quarantine rules. Pakistan are in New Zealand as well. 6 of those players tested positive on the way over. There's fucking COVID everywhere.
Mate. And more stuff is going to get cancelled.
That's right.
And I don't know about the rollout of this vaccine because I live in Australia, so we only care about our own little corner.
Yeah, that's right.
But I feel like the aberration is that Australia's going pretty well at the moment.
Well, Kane Williamson's going also pretty well.
Yeah.
Speaking of vaccines,
nice. New Zealand's going well too, I suppose.
So you would have seen the meme going around of the pitch that was played for the first test. The greenest thing I've ever seen. Very hard to actually decipher which was the outfield, which was the pitch. It was that green, but that's also what they need to do in New Zealand because of the weather conditions and stuff. The pitch doesn't crack up as much as it does even in Australia in some cities and states.
Okay, let's
so
do
it doesn't. So it doesn't spin. It doesn't like spin like Adelaide can spin at the end of a game. For instance, Sydney famously at the end, perhaps.
Are you talking? You know a bit about pitches?
I don't fuck all about pitches. I was reading about it. Read it before. It's just like with their weather conditions, they don't have like the it's much harder to make a much more even contest because they've scored. New Zealand have scored fucking massive runs recently in the last couple of years. When we were going to interview Colin de Grono, I had a question about him. They played against Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Damn it, one of those two, and they scored 700. That was about maybe a year ago. They're scoring bulk runs over there. Anyway, Kane Williamson he's still fucking pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's also about to become a father for the first time, so you might leave a couple of test matches.
Yeah, but you always play better sport when you come back as a father because everything's in perspective.
Joe Root didn't.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm waiting to see how Kane Richardson goes.
Interesting.
So, congratulations.
Pez, we're about to speak to a former Prime Minister of the country.
That's right.
Sometimes you have moments doing this and you think, what the fuck? This is just a Twitter account.
What's it about?
It's about at the grade level.
That's right. Very much looking forward to it. He goes, and as with all of our interviews, they are brought to you by Ponting Wines. Again, not a sentence I imagined ever saying. And I just want to add another thing. We were lucky enough to be sent a few bottles. I think you're going to get a few soon.
I am.
Get a few. And my wife wanted to sample the Sauv Blanc this week.
As is her want.
As is her want. I'm not that big on the white drop, but I said, okay, for the sake of
twist my arm.
Commerce. Yeah, that's right. I'm twisting my own arm. So I had a go at the first session, Adelaide Hills Sauv Blanc 2020. And I would describe it as fresh. I would describe it as floral.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Not with the sun coming out in Melbourne. Not today, obviously. Put your ski parker on today.
Yeah.
Obviously in the middle of December.
Yep.
But again, they've hit the mark once again. Ponting was hit the mark with his white. First session. If you want a case of that bad boy, as we've said before, just use the code GETAFEW at checkout. pontingwines.com.au. Chuck in GETAFEW. You're going to get 10% off a case. It's pontingwines.com.au.
Here's the Honourable Kevin Rudd.
Okay, he goes, today's guest wouldn't be aware of this, but we often introduce our guests by way of their numbers because cricketers, as we know, are only their numbers. They're not their personality. It's just what they've achieved. Now, I think the same may be able to be said about this man and his achievements as well. So let me run through some numbers to kick off. Elected to the House of Representatives for Griffith in 1998, re-elected 01, 04, 07, 2010, 2013, leader of the Federal Labor Party for 4 or so years, Foreign Minister for 2 and a bit years, Prime Minister of Australia on 2 separate occasions, and in his role as chair of the National Apology Foundation, owner of Melbourne's handball's Melbourne Dog Shot. Indeed, I can't think of an activity with greater parallels to grade cricket than the blood sport of politics, with the alphas in government, the beaters in opposition, and a sprinkling of rare units like Barnaby Joyce. So it is with great pleasure that we welcome today former Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Kevin Rudd AC. Mr. Rudd, welcome to the Grade Cricketer Podcast.
It's good to be on the Grade Cricketer Podcast. I wouldn't have described Barnaby as a eunuch.
How would you describe him?
Next question.
Now, Mr. Rudd, because this, and I will call you Mr. Rudd if that's okay, because this is...
Kevin's fine.
Okay. Kevin, because this is a podcast of, integrity and journalistic repute, as you would know, it's only fair we ask you a version of the question we ask everybody to kick off. Kevin, what's your relationship to cricket?
I really enjoy it. I have since I was a kid. I played for the Yandina C team up here in Queensland, southeast Queensland. Yandina is a town of about 500 people. The fact that it could field an A team, a B team, and a C team says what sort of dregs you were getting down to with the C team. And I basically was 12th man in the C team. So I was a classic wicketkeeper batsman and could do neither effectively. But I really did enjoy the game. And since being a kid, whenever I've been able to get to watch a test match in the flesh, I've done so, the Gabba primarily. And as Prime Minister, one of the great perks is being able to select your own team for the Prime Minister's 11. That's kind of fun. I really enjoy test match cricket because it's slow. That's what I like.
You actually started the tradition in 2010, Kevin, by inviting both teams of whoever was playing in the Sydney Test to Kirribilli House. I mean, this is a great initiative for many reasons, but also gives us a chance to look at how professional athletes and politicians are cut from different cloths and, giving us memes basically of, ScoMo most recently. But, can you speak about how that came about, that specifically, and also maybe the place that cricket holds in Australian culture?
Well, it struck me as kind of odd that we, for the Sydney Test, given that you've got the Prime Minister's residence at Kirribilli, and given that you've got this major event, which is the Sydney Test, due apologies to the Melbourne mob who'll be listening to this as well, why not? And so I thought, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to throw the place open for a few beers. For the Australian team and whoever they're up against in that particular season. So it was just kind of my crazy idea. And I said, why don't we do this? And we should. So, I'm glad 10 years later that the tradition continues.
There'll be a pretty sizable crowd reacting to the fact we're interviewing you, Kevin, by saying, oh, come on, boys, just leave politics out of sport.
Stick to cricket.
Stick to cricket, boys. To your mind, are politics and sport uncomfortable or easy bedfellows?
Oh, look, I think the great Australian tradition is that whenever you go to a cricket match, a bit like going to football, you just leave your politics at the gate when you go in because you're there to enter an entirely different world. But what's the similarity? The similarity is tactics and strategy, offensive play and defensive play, front foot strokes and being on the back foot. And in politics, let me tell you, you're on the back foot more than you're on the front foot. And always being mindful of when that other bugger's going to send you a googly in question time. So, the metaphors are all there. But my deep respect for Australian sportsmen and women is this. We get 3 or 4 years in a political term to demonstrate whether we've really screwed up or not. You guys, you get a match or two, and basically it's all over if you're a batsman within a delivery or two. there is a longer and more generous, as it were, benchmark applied to your success or failure as a political leader compared with those poor buggers who go out in the middle. That's kind of my view.
I mean, we sort of look at politics, Kevin, as basically two idiots from the internet. We sort of look at it from afar. Like, how do politicians wake up every morning and they're just getting absolutely hammered from all day, every day, from the opposition, from the press, sometimes, in Australia, the last 10 years in federal politics anyway, sometimes from their own party, I mean, how do you deal with sledging, just that sort of, that aspect of just getting hammered all day, it seems?
Yeah, well, it's a bit tricky. If you're a cricketer, for example, I imagine, never having been a successful cricketer myself, always dreamed of being one, but, as my mother always said, aspiration always, in my case, exceeded ability by a factor of 10. So, but if you're being sledged in the newspapers, if you're a batsman or bowler or whatever, or you're a slips fieldsman, you've dropped your 26 catch at second slip in a row, it affects you psychologically, whether you choose to admit it or not. And growing up in the great Australian school of hard knocks, of course, we never admit it. But in the truth of our sort of midnight confessions to those nearest and dearest to us, it does. So in politics, you wake up, my standard question to Therese would be, "Good morning, darling. What crimes against humanity have I committed today?" And she would oh, here's a new one, she'd say. "You've just been accused of." Oh, I said, "Oh, that's good. When did I do that?" And yeah, it does. It can get under your skin. If it's fair, though, and you've got respected cricketing journalists who call it for what it is, a good innings or a bad innings or a mediocre innings, and they're fair in their judgments, I don't think anyone minds, even the players. But when you sense there's, let me call it an editorial agenda, which is to do you in just because they don't like you, that's when you start to get into an ugly place. So, but, as I said, I think people in political life have it much easier than those who put on the baggy green for Australia, because they're under a microscope. Every delivery, every moment in the field, do they scratch themselves on the arse inappropriately, etc. So I think they have it harder than we do.
Speaking of those parallels between politics and cricket, Kevin, before we jump into those themes that you were just mentioning earlier, you were speaking to Lee Sales last week, and you referred to China's wolf warrior diplomacy and hairy-chested junior diplomats aiming to get noticed. Now, in cricketing terms, China strikes me as a fairly powerful club president with an axe to grind, and Australia is more of a sort of a promising third grader trying to do well at their club. What I'm asking is, what's the best way to manage China?
The on or off the field? That's the question.
Or both.
Yeah.
Well, I think China's tricky. I mean, for my sins, I speak Chinese, and I lived and worked there for quite a number of years with Therese and when our kids were little. So I know the country reasonably well. They are like, I won't use cricketing analogies here because I'm bound to screw it up. But this is a country on the make. They've been on the back foot for 100, 150 years. They're now on the front foot. They're very good at their offensive play. But at the same time, they've still got a lot of weaknesses in the side. There are fragilities in their politics, fragilities in their economy, fragilities in their approach to climate and climate change. It's also a dry country, at least the northern part of it. And for countries like Australia, I mean, part of our discipline is to ourselves never take a backward step, but to be intelligent about when you pick your disputes, really intelligent about when you pick your disputes. It's not smart to pick one every morning at 7 o'clock. It's far better to, as it were, husband your capital well. Final point is, in dealing with China, because there's 1.4 billion of them, and last time I looked, 25 million of us, it's always better when you're about to have a disagreement with our friends in Beijing to make sure that you've teamed up with some others as well, rather than just being on your Pat Malone. There you go. There are some reflections.
Kevin, on October 10, you called for a royal commission to the strength and diversity of Australian news media, and you put out a petition that over 500,000 people signed. What's the status of that campaign, and what happens next?
Well, basically, I just think it's all gone too far with the concentration of media ownership in Australia. Murdoch has ownership of 70% of the print readership in Australia. Up here in the People's Republic of Queensland, it's 100%. And so it doesn't matter if you're in Cairns, the Cairns Post, the Townsville Bulletin, the Mackay Mercury, the Rockhampton Morning Bulletin, the Gladstone Observer, the Bundaberg News Mail, the Maryborough Chronicle, Sunshine Coast Daily, Brisbane Courier Mail, Gold Coast Bulletin, and all the ones I missed are all owned by Murdoch. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that's a good thing for a democracy. And nationwide, every capital city's tabloid is owned by Murdoch, except in Perth. And so I just think it's unhealthy for democracy. In fact, I think it's a cancer on the democracy. So I hope through this petition we get federal or state governments to put together a royal commission to look at the impact of the abuse of media monopoly power, but B, to bring in a decent set of media regulations for the future which maximise diversity and maximise, as it were, the separation of factual reporting from editorial opinion. So that people in a democracy get to make up their own mind rather than being told by some old bugger in New York what to think.
That's the petition itself was so popular that it crashed the parliamentary website on the first weekend. I mean, it's since become the most signed e-petition in the history of Australia, even surpassing last year in 2019, the petition that demanded for a climate change emergency be declared. I mean, what do you think this says about the appetite, at least in certain sectors of Australia's, appetite for the suppression of, Murdoch?
Oh, I think it's a bit like cricket. People just want a fair go. Like whether you're Labor, Liberal, National Party or Colourthumpian, people, there's a genuine Australian sense of democracy, a natural sense of democracy, which is that every person should have an opportunity to put their view, to present facts and then present their opinion on what should be done about the facts. And I think right across Australia, particularly over the last decade, people have just had a gutful of it going too far. Another example. In 19 out of the last 19 federal and state elections in the last 10 years, the Murdoch media have campaigned viciously for one side of politics and viciously against another side of politics. I'll let you guess which is which. Now, I don't think that passes the fair go test. So all I want is diverse media. I don't want a pro-Labor media. I don't want a pro-conservative media. I just want a diverse media. So that people in our democracy and our local communities as well get to read the news, understand where facts are, understand where the opinion lies, and form their own judgment about how they want the country or their state or the community governed. So where does it all go to from here? Bugger if I know. But I'm out there lining up at the Volta Street end every morning and doing my best to pound in and throw them and bowl them something, hopefully whistling in the sweet spot just outside the off stump.
Or throw them too, if you have to chuck it as well. I mean, it is a blood sport. But Kevin, what do you say to those people, and it will be us as well, who might point out that while there's some, really salient points that you've raised about the concentration of media in Australia, that within News Corp, for example, there's some really good people doing really good work, especially in sport, for example, which perhaps may not be as much of a blood sport in a media sense. There's lots of colleagues of ours who do great stuff. Are we to reconsider our KO subscriptions? I just want to watch that sweet cricket. Or is it a different approach we should take as citizens entirely?
Well, look, it is a vast beast, the Murdoch empire. And I spend most of my time living in America. I run an American think tank. I'm usually based in New York. We would not have had Trump's America were it not for Murdoch's Fox. That's just the truth of it. It's an echo chamber for far right and not center right, far right crazy politics. Why do 40% of Americans refuse to consider taking the vaccine? Because they've been told that the science is wrong. Why does 40% of Americans not believe the science on climate change? Because they've been told through Fox the science is wrong. I just think all that is bad. Now, having said that, I actually know people in Fox, United States, who try to do a good job in their journalism. And I respect them for sort of slogging away day in, day out. So I'm not in the business of slagging each and every journalist who works for News Corporation, because a lot of them are trying to do the right thing. But when I look at the editors and the Broderbund who kind of run the show at the top, the chief executives, management, there is a patently ideological and business agenda driving everything, which is to maximise Murdoch's profits and to maximise a particular brand of far-right ideology. Mm. And I just don't think that's healthy. So, yeah, like you know, journalists have got to earn a quid and they're out there trying to do their best, whoever they work for. But when you start to look up the editorial line, to get ahead in News Corporation, it's basically who kisses the ring of the master.
Mm.
It's interesting because you need to use the media. Well, it's helpful to use the media to get your message out about this, Kevin. And you've been talking a little bit about the sort of retribution that can come your way, or you mentioned earlier, if you stand at the Vulture Street end and try and bowl a few bumpers at News Corp. Have you come across journalists or storytellers who might have been reluctant to engage in this, very fair conversation for fear of it being held against them down the track?
Yeah, you see, one of the other reasons I'm doing what I'm doing on the Murdoch media at present is that in Australia there's a real culture of fear. That if you take on the Murdoch beast and simply make clear how they manipulate the news each day, as I've sought to do in recent months and years, what they don't report and how they report what they report and the bias which is evident across the lot of it. Very few people do this in Australia because they know from past experience that Murdoch will try and take your head off, then destroy your character. And if that's not enough, then extract your left carotid artery, snap it in front of your eyes, and then chew it up for breakfast, and then spit it out on the pavement, and then ask the question rhetorically, have I made myself clear? And there are many politicians whose heads are still on pikes outside the city wall who have done this before. And so sensible people look at this and say, well, yeah, I don't think we'll get into this. This doesn't look like a healthy occupation for me. In my case, for example, since I launched this petition, I've lost count in the last month how many front page and page 3 attacks on me for, as I said, assorted crimes against humanity. And then once you actually dig into each article, you'll find all the equivocating clauses under the headline, which is Rudd, secret relationship with Hitler, Rudd, Stalin's first cousin, Rudd, known to have frequented bars with Osama bin Laden, and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So you've got to have a thick skin, but it's wrong that we've got a culture of fear. Anyone in this country and our proud Australian democracy who's got a view about the media and a view about power in the media should be able to express their view as a journo, as a politician or a broadcaster, and not fear that they're going to be eviscerated the next morning. That's just unhealthy. It's kind of mafioso-like. It's just wrong.
Many of our listeners and viewers, Kevin, will be thinking, well, how does this relate to me? And Ian Chappell's spoken in the last couple of years that climate change, of all the sports that will be affected by climate change, cricket's actually one of the first ones that will see the impacts. In fact, that already cricket has seen impacts around the world due to climate change. And there were some publications in Australia last year, basically on the back of the bushfires, which were like, it's probably arsonists who did that. But it's not just in Australia, it was, Ben Stokes last year brought legal action to The Sun, obviously owned by Murdoch, for a story that was about his family, which was some 31 years earlier. I mean, is there any sort of place for these publications at all?
Look, sometimes journalists and newspapers will just get it wrong because they made a mistake. Sometimes it's deliberate. The key thing is, what is the redress when a mistake is made? And the customary attitude of news corporations when they defame you, then maybe on page 97 of the paper, 4 years later, you'll see a paragraph which says, oh yeah, we got that one wrong. In the meantime, the damage is done. Let me give you one little example. You may or may not remember the News Corporation stitch-up on me years ago about allegedly being in Afghanistan, not being able to find a hairdryer to fix up my hair. This is the Kevin Rudd hairdryer incident.
It's pretty funny.
Why'd you do it?
Yeah. Well, that's all bullshit. I just never happened.
Yeah,
I don't need
good. Yeah.
there overnight, and you certainly wouldn't need a hairdryer, mate. And
that's what it feels like.
So anyway, so it splashed all across the Murdoch media. Kevin Rudd loses his shit in Afghanistan with diggers because no one could find him a hairdryer to do his hair. It was a bald-faced lie. It just never happened. Then if you bothered to look at the newspapers over the subsequent weeks, they kind of just crab walked their way eventually to a position which said, yeah, we really didn't have any sources for that story at all. So that's me. It must happen to a whole bunch of people out there in the community. But because they become such a swaggering, arrogant pack of buggers, this Murdoch culture, they think they can get away with it because no one will stand up and say that's just wrong and unfair. And then if you challenge it, they say, you're trying to suppress press freedom. Well, with freedom of the press, there also comes a responsibility to correct your errors. Or when you're putting a story in the first place, to pass the basic journalistic test. Do you have two sources for this story? Secondly, have you asked the person for comment before you publish something negative against them? These basic principles are routinely ignored and abused by the Murdoch media every day of the week.
Kevin, just finally, for those out there thinking that this may be some kind of partisan play from the great cricketer, I mean, we wrote a note to Mr. Howard's office this morning, a noted cricket tragic, asking if he'd like to come on the podcast later down the track. Now, like, how satisfying is it that Mr. Howard, as a cricket tragic, still holds that footage for the worst delivery ever bowled? And then when we look up Kevin Rudd on YouTube, you're actually playing quite a few good few shots through the offside.
Mm.
Yes, mate. Well, I put it back to my coach of the Andina C team. Desi Bargainquest was his name. And Desi used to look at me and just shake his head. And then we'd go back into the nets for another try. And my eye-hand coordination was probably about 3 seconds behind, see a ball and then react 3 seconds later. And never quite worked. But, I always like rolling my arm over in the backyard with the kids or whatever. It's kind of fun. And I know enough just to get myself out of trouble, And as for John Winston Howard, and his famous delivery in the hills of Pakistan, I think it was, never ever laugh at another player's problems. It just invites very bad karma. So I say, good on you, John, for having a go.
But he said the ball got stuck in his hand kind of thing, but he had a few goes at it. I mean, I'm just trying to think, you would have been in your office, the brief would have been delivered in the morning saying, what are we going to do with this, guys? It must have been like a Christmas gift.
Well, the funny thing is, when I was Prime Minister, what we used to do in Prime Minister's office in Canberra was about probably 12, 15 metres long, the Prime Minister's office. So Faulkner, when he was Defence Minister, John Faulkner, I had this bat given to me, I think, by the Pakistan side. So I'd be up one end of the office and he'd be down the other. And he would roll them over. And used to freak the rest of the staff out completely. Because when I did connect, the ball would go anywhere within the office, and there'd be bloody glasses everywhere, and so, it was good fun. And we had a little courtyard outside the Prime Minister's office too. You might even find some footage of a visit one day to the building by the Australian 11, where I got to live every childhood dream as these guys bowled me some lollipops as I tried to make myself look half presentable. They were very kind, very, very kind.
Oh, you've been very kind to us this morning, Kevin Rudd, former Prime Minister of Australia, for joining us. I know you've got a busy day. No doubt this was the biggest hardball interview you did have to do today, in fact, this month. But thanks very much for coming on and enlightening us around the parallels between grade cricket and the blood sport of politics and beyond.
It's good, and none of us ever score a golden duck. Or in my case, again and again.
To keep doing the metaphors. Thanks very much, Kevin.
Good with you.
Now, Ian, and I will refer to you as your first name.
It's weird.
The UK has approved the Pfizer vaccine for use.
Yeah.
Right? You can get that on their government websites. Now, you might say, he goes, that's going to act as a bit of a saviour. You might say that.
Yep. That's very specific language.
You might say,
where's he going?
It acts as a bit of a saviour.
Let's see where it's going.
A saviour for our health.
Yeah.
A saviour for the economy.
Yeah.
And you have to pick one. It's either health or the economy. That's your life.
That's
all right.
yes.
It's binary.
Yes.
You can't sit in a scale with
That's
it.
right. No.
You're
No
a health
scales.
person or you're an economy person, and your vote is decided accordingly.
Yes.
So as we gather to celebrate our dear friends at Budgy Smuggler, as is our want at this time in the show, and they are offering a full gamut of kit around Christmas time. You know, Christmas gifts, smugglers, smuglets, shirts, whatever kit you can think of. Even gear in the $10 to $20 range for your Secret Santa needs.
That's right.
Scrunchies. We want to talk about saviours because you can chuck your own design on if you want. You don't need to in this iteration of the Budgy ad, but you can. So I'm thinking about some saviours. Saviours of Australian cricket and beyond. I looked up I googled cricket saviours.
Cricket saviour.
Here's what came up: Bob Simpson.
Why?
Who at the time when he came in as a coach
yeah.
and great player. He actually came back for Australian cricket at the age of 41 as well to help out a little bit to play.
One of the weirder 300s, Test match 300s.
I remember you watching that in full.
Yeah.
So,
And it's what I mean is like, don't get me wrong, wonderful player, but you think of like to score 300 is fucking amazing.
Yes.
Is Bob Simpson fucking amazing?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
You want to check that out.
Okay.
He used to also take slips catches by letting the ball hit his chest.
That's how you take him.
And, we talk about fucking bench pressing. How about the next level? Let that flying pill hit your chest and just bump it up.
I still think about that when like Wagner was hitting Wade and Wade was just letting it hit him. What? Hurts. Cricket ball hurts.
It can only mean one of two things. Either Bob Simpson had an incredible chest and great strength around it and was early into strength and conditioning, or, as we suspect, the ball's travelling around 80 k's an hour at that age.
It was mostly fourth grade then. So he came back when he was 41. Just
for
to,
a game
just
or
to,
two.
Just to help run the club.
Help run the club of Australian Test
I
cricket.
didn't realise he was 41.
But then he came back. Then he came into the side as a coach when Australia was as low as ever in the 80s and transformed around fielding, discipline. Right. The Simpson border axis was as ruthless as it got, really. So Bob Simpson, Ricky Ponting.
Yeah, that's not
obvious.
Yeah.
Marnus Labuschagne came up. He was a little bit of a saviour of the Ashes, and he's sort of a saviour of number 3. Yeah, okay. Tim Payne makes sense.
Tim Payne's on.
Mitch
Payne's
Marsh. That was a WA press. I saw.
I was just saying he gets a tough go.
Mitch Marsh. Yeah, great around the group. Cricket itself as a saviour.
Cricket, it is.
Yeah.
Would be.
Jason Sanger.
Yeah.
A few years ago, Kerry O'Keefe said he was a bit of a saviour when we were out of lower Seb. He hit 100 when he was 19 and stuff. I still think he'll come on Jason Sanger eventually.
He also bowled in the cap in the Shield at Park 25 this year.
Indeed. Many people have bowled in the cap. I read today Clary Grimmett bowled in the cap so that batters couldn't see where he wanted to pitch the ball. I don't understand that because that cap was a very short brim, like the sort of short brim that Tom Hanks was talking about in A League of Their Own.
Yeah.
To the umpire, you look like a penis with that cap on. Now, that's Hanks talking. I'm not saying Clary Grimmett did, R.I.P., speaking ill of the dead, who also got Bramman out 10 times.
10 times.
And then finally, saviours, Brisbane Broncos winger Corey Oates, who said while watching cricket while he had an infection earlier in the year was the only thing that kept him amused while he lay in hospital. So there's a few ideas for things you put in your budgies.
Yeah, okay. What about our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ?
According to some.
Marnus? You can't have Marnus alone without our Lord and Saviour.
About the big fella.
Without the big boy upstairs. Tom big boys.
About that big man.
Yeah. It's a few bigger. Yeah, I mean,
Anyway.
those are some ideas.
Some ideas to put on your Budgy Smuggler kit, which you can get at budgysmuggler.com.
Hashtag AskTGC. Just before we get into that, Pez, I just want to say a huge thank you to all the people who've recently joined the Patreon service at patreon.com/greatcricketer. There's many great stories there, and we really appreciate your support and for getting around us in these troubled, worrisome, weird times.
And thank you for the feedback on the eye poke story.
Yeah.
From everybody. Lots of fantastic feedback. Glad you enjoyed it in the main, except for the one person who said it's just you blokes laughing, which is true. Then you look up that person's account, they have 0 followers, 0 posts. Yeah. Anyway.
All the best.
There you go.
Marcus Bird writes in, Pez.
Birdie.
Fuck. The trials and tribulations of a shit sports enthusiast in a COVID world.
It's a subject.
Dear 1,000-piece Higsaw Pezzle, my question is only vaguely cricket related, but I like your pods and I'm a Patreon subscriber. So much like a medieval time peasant being asked a question by their king, you have to answer me. Lockdown 2.0 has been shit, not going to lie to you. Unable to really leave the house is annoying, and although no cricket would be played because it's fucking Baltic here in the UK, it's frustrating not being allowed to play sports. This means I haven't played golf in a month. Much like a cricketer who during the winter months shadow bats relentlessly and reminisces of the good times at the crease, I have found myself shadow batting with a different kind of stick. And before Higgy Pop's mind turned dirtier than the Australian team touring South Africa in 2018, I of course mean my golf clubs. Is this weird or is it rare? Are people allowed to shadow drive and wedge? Shadow putting is surely a step too far. Much akin to a cricketer craving the sweet rush of cricket during winter months, I also find myself thinking that when Lockdown 2 Winter Edition ends, that I will be so much better at golf than I was before. I watched the Masters and it didn't seem so hard. Hit the ball towards the flag and then putted in the hole. Easy. Yep. Having listened to your pod for a couple of years now, realizing I was thinking this immediately threw up a plethora of red flags. Golf is a sport based on repetition. I haven't played for a month and it's not like I was even good before Bojo locked us all away again. I was shit, but in my head now, I've matured as a player. I consider my shots more carefully. I won't shank every other shot right hand down into some thick bushel of trees before spending the next half hour trying to find it, as I can't go home having lost 12 balls in one round of golf because a local Amazon driver will clearly start being suspicious of me ordering 24 new golf balls weekly. Please help. What do I do? Now I've realized this is an issue. Does that mean I'll be at peace when I step up to the first tee and take out a divot of grass the size of the buggy whilst trying to hit the ball? Or should I, like many village cricketers do, avoid the problem, maybe tell people I've got COVID symptoms so they won't invite me to play in case the golf ball, like the cricket ball, is a vector of disease? Keep up the good work, lads, and sorry about writing an essay, but like I said, I'm a Patreon subscriber, so you have to read it out anyway, and just thought I'd try and get myself some airtime on your pod. Marcus.
You don't have to explain yourself, Marcus. As you mentioned, you're our king. Well, this is a tale of as old as time, he goes. And no, I'm not going to play Beauty and the Beast, as I did on Patreon.
Yeah.
But it is a tale as old as time. I just want to share, I used to be addicted to golf.
Did you?
Yeah. Before children moving to London. But I spent the entirety of a 4-month trip to Europe just visualising, because I wasn't playing golf over there. All I visualised, just the whole time, just visualised creating that light draw on the ball. You know, that dignified draw that is the hallmark of all decent golfers, being able to draw the ball. Slice, fading the ball, yuck. Fading in golf is very lower grades. It's very park.
It's a bit into out, isn't it?
Well, it is into it, and it's actually like the result of, like, if you swing a golf club like a cricket bat a little bit, you tend to get that that slicing effect. Anyway, so I wanted to look like a good golfer, and it didn't do anything when I went back to play golf. Everything felt really different. So, like, what we're talking about here is visualization. He's talking about visualization. You're just staring blankly at me. Are we not talking about that? Which can be good. Like, you know, top athletes use imagery extensively to build on their strengths and help eliminate their weaknesses. Of
course.
To compete more effectively. It helps athletes regulate anxiety they experience, to feel the flow and the groove of what they're doing, to stay confident, focused, and mentally tough. But also, and there's been some academic research into this, you know, contrary to our dynamic phenomenological experience, visual imagery is severely limited by the perceptual and phenomenal bottleneck of visual representation, as you're following me there, nodding along. In other words, if your imagination is shit and you delude yourself into thinking you can do things you can't, research suggests it might be a complete waste of time. And Marcus, brother, you're thinking you can get around Augusta with a couple of shots, get up and down, knock it in. Got a feeling your imagination's just a bit skew-if there, mate. So I'm not sure what it's going to do, but it might be serving another purpose in lockdown. And this is where I'd be serious. If those kind of daydreams are helping you get through lockdown, go for it all day. Just don't think you're going to be going sub 90, sub 80.
Yeah, breaking 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fuck that.
I said sub. I never broke 100, but yeah, sub 90. Yeah. We also get around sub 90. As long as you can get around the course.
At Augusta, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, at Augusta.
Seems pretty easy.
That's right. So I don't think it's of course it's a bit rare. If you talk about shadow golfing and stuff like that.
But
When
you think about shadow golfing, because I think shadow batting in cricket, it's less hands, more like front arm, so to speak. So if you're shadow batting, trying to do it here, but it's like you're leading with the elbow a bit more than like I'm thinking like even though golf isn't played exclusively with the hand, it's more like a full body rhythmic motion.
It's also a closed skill, you know, like when you're shadow batting, you're imagining where the ball is usually. Exactly where you want it for the shot you want to play, whereas golf is a biomechanical experience. So this connects to this and this.
So if I'm shadow wedging, as is my want, I feel like that's more just hands. I'm just feeling that in the hands, just trying to get the wrists through the ball, you know? Just sort of cut underneath it, trying to get a few more revolutions for the backspin.
Well, it depends. Are you doing a high iron there or...
No, I'm talking sorry, when I say wedge play, I'm just talking in and around the green.
Wedge player.
In around the green.
Yeah, breaking that wrist through.
Yeah, whereas like, what's your go-to shadow bat shot? Mine's just forward defense. I get beaten a lot as well.
My hands used to go too far in front of my body. I was quite a handsy player.
Yeah.
But I've become a bit obsessed with like AB de Villiers' late block. Okay. So I'm trying to think about playing under my eyes. Now I haven't played cricket in about 8 years.
Yeah.
But when I come back, I fully expect to be able to play the late block and have an extra moment of time because AB de Villiers did a YouTube clip about it.
Yeah, that's right.
So does that help?
Hope that helps.
Anonymous writes in, "G'day lads, brackets Al Higster Cook and Bubba Pazam." Close brackets. While listening to your stellar Greg Chappell interview, I, turning 30 odd in a few days, 25, under UK lockdown, began to reminisce on my cricket career and started questioning my future in the game. I've gone through a decent spectrum of cricket, playing ones at 15, doing a test player through the gate, etc., before the classic leggy shoulder injury and subsequent reinvention as a batter, hacker, at a much lower level. My best days are long behind me, having swapped the flowing green lawns of Kent for Scottish parks and cricket for squash as my main sport. Cricket is objectively worse for me now. However, like Stockholm Syndrome each season, I still find myself playing as much as possible, taking on leadership roles and so on. Perhaps some of it is that vision that everyone has, hoping that my ones call-up lasts more than a week, or I can fizz the ball out of my fingers again, because we want cricket to one day be what it was at its greatest. However, if that was the case, I hope I'd have given up long ago. Instead, I think my true motivation to keep playing at this level that hardly resembles what I knew as cricket is this podcast. I can hear your voices in my head as I stand at slip, champing new recruits lest I be champed myself. I can only imagine your reactions to some of the yuck I encounter, and occasionally even provide nowadays. My role in the hierarchy is to pass down wisdom and runs, and I embrace this gleefully, not because I want them to learn, as that might lead to the threat of my alpha status, but for increasing my cricket's relevance to two blokes living rent-free in my head. I guess the questions of cricketing existentialism are as follows. My questions of cricketing existentialism are as follows. Would my continued involvement in cricket be justifiable to Greg Chappell? In fact, is it even justifiable to myself? Or should I just tell them all to subscribe to the TGC Patron to learn the lessons I'm failing to teach them, retire so they can't use my weapons against me, and live out my weekends getting drunk on the sidelines instead, because God knows I couldn't escape this game if I tried. Top work with the pod, lads. Got me through a rough season being on the reverse end of this in Oz, and almost definitely wouldn't still be playing otherwise. Anon, those cricket Scotland is a small world.
Nice to hear from Scotland. I don't know if I've ever from Scotland before.
You just wrote that to promote the Patreon again.
Yeah, again. Yeah, I keep putting those in, even though when they don't write it.
I'm a Scottish man today.
Now, this is interesting. Now, he's at 15, or he didn't say it when he was 15, but he was playing ones at 15. He played first team cricket in Scotland when he was 15. Look, that's...
Was it in Scotland? Because he says Kent.
Oh,
well
yes, okay.
Was
yes,
that later?
okay. Yeah, okay.
The chronology is a little bit...
How you going?
Yeah.
A little bit how you going.
I got a test player out.
Yeah, through the gate.
Through
now,
the
was he
gate.
trying to fucking bomb you?
Well...
And just missed it?
Could have been wrong, and if he's a leggy, he's a right-hander, but it could have been a left-hander.
No, I understand through the gate, but like, you know, has he actually done a test player through the gate?
My first
leg
thought also
spin?
was, and he's a Scotland player, but they haven't played test cricket.
Yeah.
You know, was he meaning an international player? And if it's a Scottish player, does it kind of look like Scotland?
Yeah.
We have to take him at face value. He's done a test player as a leggy before the yips happened.
Okay, so Shane Warne's written in, and he's played a bit of cricket in Kent and Scotland. Okay, that's what's happened. But he's got Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, so it's a should I keep playing? I'm a good player, but I'm shit.
Yeah. But then there was also some stuff about he's got some fears about, you know, like how to deal with younger people and what if they sledge him as well. So he's kind of got some fears about like the younger people coming through and his place in the game, of which he is really struggling. I can't really give him an answer because I think he already knows the answer. He's playing squash. You know, he's like getting into other sports, which I think Greg Chappell would be inclusive of. The Chappell's obviously famous baseball family. So, I mean, I feel like squash is rightfully so denounced in Australia because it's not alpha.
Yeah.
There's nothing alpha about squash. It's good fast
agility.
twitch. It's a very difficult sport. Don't get me wrong.
Great for fitness.
Great for fitness. Not good for your knees.
Yeah.
Got to say that.
But it wasn't popular in, say, 1930 when Australia's culture was being kind of
Right.
created.
That's right. And we've never had a great squash player. Therefore, we don't really care about it.
I feel for Anon here as well because as a yipped up leggy, you create your cricketing identity and your dreams through your idea of bowling leg spin. Then as it happens to all 15-year-olds, except for Shane Warne, Stuart McGill, you get the yips, you get big, you get taller and stronger, and then all of the feel of the ball goes away. Maybe your hands don't grow like mine.
Now, what is that? Because like when you're 15, right, you're not using a full size ball yet.
No, it's not full size ball. Well, like my theory was like, up until the age of 15, because you're weaker, you can throw the entire force of your body into a ball and toss it up in the air on Astro pitches. You get lots of bounce and the full force of your body lands the ball on a good length. But as you go through puberty, you become a pubescent and you develop some hairs. You throw the full force of your body into the ball and all of a sudden it's going over their head.
I've become a pubescent.
I'm a pubescent. I'm a pubescent young man. I read young adult fiction. What are these hairs, Daddy? and
Shut up and bowl your wrongin'.
And all of a sudden, the full force of your body through the ball results in full tosses. You overcorrect. Now it's short. Now you're having to use your fingers and your wrist to kind of land the ball, but it's got to have some base. Now you're playing against other pubescents. Some of the men have muscles. And those... You laugh. It's true.
Some of the men have muscles.
Some of the men have muscles, Dad, and they can now
At tea time, you mean? They're eating muscles?
They can take full account of those mistakes, that smaller margin for error. You're not playing on AstroTurf no more, brother. You're playing on turf cricket, so you ain't getting that bounce. Those balls aren't going through the chest anymore. So you're getting lined up by big blokes. You're bigger yourself. The whole feel of it's gone. And so for Anon, he was on his way as a 15-year-old. Yeah. All of a sudden, he had to got the yips, had to completely recreate his cricket career and create it and forge a new identity. Yes. What he found out was he was shit at batting and everything else. And so in his head, he's like, I was good, but now I can't do that thing. And in fact, I'm worse at that thing than everything else. I'm shit. So who am I? So he's now trying to be a avuncular and a mentor to other people. And they're starting to fuck him off. Then he hears Greg Chappell say, man, if you're no good at 20, fuck off out of here. Get out of here. Let someone else play. He's like, I play squash. Should I play squash? I hate squash. He's confused. And he turns to us.
I wonder, Pez, though, to Anon's point, like, was he ever good? You know, because what you're describing there is like...
He got a test play through the gate.
Yeah. Okay.
In the nets, though.
But I'm saying, he was
nets?
throwdowns.
Yeah. Not 15 yards.
He wasn't looking.
Yeah. Throwdowns.
Got him on the front pad.
He just actually pegged one in throwdowns. Like, see, I got him through the gate.
Yeah. I done you there, Bradman. But like, I wonder, like you're describing there at 15, like the AstroTurf is like that's a centerpiece, that story. And then that kind of like, you know, hides all sins because it's like you can bowl a shit ball, but it bounces fucking through some cunt's chest. Some cunt.
Yes
like
and
12.
no. Yes and no. AstroTurf is a true surface. You know, like you're not going to get a lot of gremlins. It's just bounce. You know, so
it's
turf
not true in terms of like with spin though. If you toss it up, then it does go through. How does your ball go through the chest? We've got leg spin on it.
Consistency. It's consistent. Like as in when the ball bounces, you you get the feel of it. You know how it's going to behave.
Yes.
Whereas a turf wicket, it's like bounces there. How high is that going to go? Bounces. How far is
So
this
it's
going
like
to spin?
it's like rebound ace.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like rebound ace, Australian Open tennis courts.
Hey, let's finish off the show where we had a Prime Minister on from a message from Toby.
And before you read this one, he goes,
Oh, yeah.
it's a great story. Certain elements of it I think should be left out because I think there's GST on it. Do you know what I mean? Or are you going to go through the whole thing?
Oh, I can just go through the whole thing.
Okay.
I don't think all of it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, great. Well, that's the disclaimer.
Yeah. Let's just see what it says.
Let's see what it says.
Now, that's not an invitation to start writing in some fucking other wild bullshit that
Yeah.
you just made up in your
They've
head.
been doing that for years.
Let's see what Toby says.
See what Toby says.
Let's see what he says.
It's a good story.
Ask TGC. Dear Peasant, he goes, my lack of intelligence made coming up with funny names too much for me. Good start. As a descendant of the mighty Victor Trumper, fact-checked through a private genealogist.
This is Toby Trumper. Sure, that's his name. You laugh. Same as Gideon Haig's cat. He's known as Trumper.
Oh my God.
His name's Toby Trumper.
You've actually looked this up?
There's no kid there. His name's Toby Trumper.
Oh, I'm sorry for laughing, Toby. That's a great name.
No chance you're related to the great Victor Trumper. So funny. I'm related to Victor Trumper. Good gag.
Yeah. I cannot tell you how disappointed my family and I are with my cricketing ability. My highest score in 12 years of cricket is still 41, and I only managed to hit my first six last year on an Astro wicket with the help of a very short leg side boundary. Despite that, I still label myself a valuable all-rounder that can spin it both ways as long as the wicket is a used slow track. Anyhow, I have a question for you based on a story from almost a year and a half ago. It was the day before the World Cup final, and having been on a night out in London the night before to celebrate my birthday and also to drown my sorrows due to the fact I found out that day I had to retake half of my first year at uni, I really fancied an early night before what could be the biggest day of my life as a cricket fan. However, it was my friend's birthday party that day, and duty called for me to celebrate it with him and his friends. Tired and hungover, I made my way to a pub by the side of the Thames and started nursing a few pints while socialising with people I had not met before in my England World Cup shirt. Anyhow, 4 pints in, someone asked the question, anyone a cricket fan here? My eyes lit up and I shouted out that I myself was an obsessive to the point where I had to occasionally ask myself, do I devote too much time to cricket? And should I focus on other things such as my studies, my social life, and my future employability? He told me that he thought there was an England cricketer drinking on another table. I looked over and saw a young ginger-haired man, Ollie Pope. Having to hold back the sudden emergence of a crease around my upper thigh region, I decided that he was having a quiet night and he wouldn't want to be disturbed by an annoying, pesky teenager, 21. So I lay low. A few pints later, I decided that my original conservative view was indeed pointless. With a bit of Dutch courage, I meandered over to his table to ask if I could buy him a beer. Upon reaching the table, I realised that Popey, nickname basis, wasn't the only cricketer there. He was also joined by Tom Curran in the World Cup squad, due to be at Lord's the next day, and Sean Abbott. My heart was beating at about 140 clicks and shaking. I asked them if they would like...
Just to show how quick it was.
Yeah, and shaking, I asked them if they would like a beer. Popey neither declined nor accepted alongside Curran. However, Abbott proclaimed, mate, you're the first bloke who's recognised me since I've been with you Poms. I'd love one. Realising that I only had enough money to buy Popey a drink, I used the length of the queue to my advantage to call my dad and beg for a bank transfer for what I described as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to him. I took 4 Camden Pale Ales, other brands available, back to the table with a large smile on my head. Popey reluctantly accepted his beer. Already pissed off this spotty little twat was ruining his evening. Abbott grabbed his beer off me and started drinking straight away, and Curran politely declined his, declaring he had a busy day tomorrow. I was testing him. I asked for a picture of Popey and I, which Abbott used as an opportunity to fill up my camera roll with selfies of himself. They are still on my bedroom wall. Anyway, after sitting with them for about 20 minutes, mainly speaking to Abbott about his plans to get in the Australian Test squad for the Ashes that summer, despite not agreeing with him, I fully backed him to take the place of Pat Cummins. Abbott decided to ask me, where do I go to get a shag tonight, mate? I need to sample the English talent. Bit of GST.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
I need to sample the English talent.
And he's asking Toby Trumper.
Yeah, Toby Trumper, wearing a full England kit.
Here's a bloke who knows his way around that scene, I reckon. I saw this as an opportunity to tell him that the club I was going had the highest success rate north of the river for single men, one of the worst clubs in the world. Popey, shall we go there tonight? Asked Abbott. There is no chance you're getting me out tonight, he replied. I could tell that in order not to dampen any future business opportunities with Ollie Pope, the future of English cricket, it was best I thanked them for their time and wandered back to my friends. Anyhow, fast forward 3 hours later, I was aimlessly walking around a dance floor with not much awareness of where I was. That was until my eyes caught sight of the same ginger hair I'd seen earlier. Popey! I shouted as I walked over to him to give him a nice sweaty hug. Despite the loud music, I could still hear him sigh. Abbott embraced me with a very warm welcome and thanked me for the beer. He asked if I wanted a Jaeger bomb, which I insisted I would buy. Next thing I knew, I had just done 3 rounds of Jaeger bombs with the future of English cricket and Abbott, who I had decided was a great bloke. After looking for talent across the dance floor with Abbott, he decided it was time to make his move, and him and Popey bid farewell to me. It was emotional. I really felt the foundations had been laid for a strong friendship between the three of us. I can't tell you what happened over the course of the next few hours. I had made prior arrangements to stay at my mate's house. However, my phone was out, and I had no idea where he lived. Being the good man that he is, he decided to come and find me at the club and drag me home. He himself had had a few drinks, and the bouncer refused to let him in. He wasn't a good-looking blonde bird. He had a look in the smoking area where he saw Popey. I had already told him I had seen him earlier that night. Mate, I'm so sorry to bother you, but is there any chance you've seen my friend, he says. He says that he has met. Who? The cunt in the England shirt? Yeah, he's on the dance floor, I presume, Ollie Pope replied. Naturally, upon waking up and hearing this in the morning, I was upset. However, it doesn't stop there. Later that summer, I went to a grade cricketer live show on my own. With no one to talk to, I spotted a familiar face, Abbott's. I thought I'd go and see if he ever got lucky that night. Hey, Sean, do you remember me? From that night, out the day before the World Cup final? Nah, mate, who on earth are you? He proceeded to turn around and continue his original conversation. I was left speechless and upset that night was all in vain. Luckily, at the grade cricketer did like one of my tweets from earlier that day, so not all was lost in my sad fucking cricket-orientated life. My question is to you, why do cricketers hate me so fucking much? Boys, cheers for the weekly content. I'm loving the Patron, and I hope to see you live on stage again soon. Best wishes, Toby Trumper. P.S. Pez, it is awfully kind of you to follow me on Instagram. I'm not sure why you do, but it makes me feel powerful when I slide into the DMs of a famous Australian cricketing icon. Cheers.
Yeah. Toby Trumper. See, that's fine for the follow.
Yes.
All good. So a few things first.
Yeah.
Yeah. As the cricketers like to say, a bit of mayo, I'd imagine on that.
Right.
I don't think Sean Abbott's saying, "Shall we retire to the dance floor?" No, Sean Abbott's a good fella as well. For all the things that we've
he's a nice guy.
Yeah, all the dealings we've had with him,
and we'll be the arbiter of who is and isn't a nice guy.
Exactly. Well, the core question why do cricketers hate me so fucking much? It's not just you, Toby. It's all about utility, you know.
Right.
If you can be of utility, it's not just cricketers, but anyone with over 10,000 followers on social. Mm-hmm. You can be of utility, whether it be in the form of beers, Canton Pale Ales, if you will, and you will.
Other brands are
circuiting, whatnot. Nah, that's all well and good. But turn up to a live show and someone's just chatting with someone else and you just want to ask them how they went in the circuit. And they're like, I've never seen you in my life.
Nah, mate, who on earth are you?
Mate, we had that with Brad Hodge last year, or the year before, 2 years ago when we interviewed him. We had a great interview with him. It went really, really well at Channel 7 in person. Probably our best one. And then 6 hours later, we went to say goodbye to him in literally the same place, and he just blanked us like he'd never seen us.
Forgot about that.
You remember that? See you later, Hodgie. He's just like, what?
What?
He's like, it's like a kid who sees a teacher outside the context of school.
Yeah.
You know, like kid just sees a teacher in the shopping centre. It's like, oh my God, I literally see you every day. I was like, what are you doing here? You're there. You're from
there.
that context. You're that.
Yeah.
And that night, Toby, you were just the bloke buying him Jaegers and beers and helping him with the circuit. The next night, he's like, I don't know what that is. Whenever you next saw him at the London live show, he was like, what's that? I don't know what this is.
Also funny that Abbott came to a live show. We didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, Toby, if you wore your England cricket shirt more,
yeah,
I wouldn't recommend doing that too often, mate.
If you're interested in being, I suppose,
utilised
Respected?
socially, respected as a person, meeting a woman, any of those things.
Adults wearing replica international cricket kits. Discuss.
Let's just check those hard drives. Thank you very much to the Honourable Kevin Rudd. Thank you for
He wrote 1,278 word story.
ripped him.
Check your hard drives, brother.
Thank you, the descendant of Victor Trumper, to write into the show.
a good
Thank you
player.
to Kevin Rudd. He was a good stick. Thank you, Kevin Rudd, being on the show. Thank you to everyone listening out there. See you guys on Patron during the week. Or the rest of you, see you guys next week.